I played Baldur's Gate 3. Baldur's Gate 3 is by Larian, so the people who did Divinity Original Sin 1 and 2. It is in early access, and despite being in early access, it costs full price, which right away is kind of weird. And I mean like 60 USD full price, like no discount on early access.
Are they listing future promises with that purchase?
The future promise is you'll get the game as it's made, and then the game will come out and you'll own it.
Okay, so
Like the promise
right away.
is we're making it. You want to fuck around with this and do bug reports? Sure. And boy, is it early access. It is I've been playing it on stream, and the game just constantly feels like it is sweating and grunting, and it is just struggling to not fly to pieces.
Early access is usually reserved for something a little more indie, though. Baldur's Gate being a a known franchise feels like a bit of a strange choice to go that route on it, because yeah, I could see them not necessarily wanting to break it up into different price points if the plan is to just make a final game and release it for sale on everything later.
So it appears that is going to be the way Larian makes games. The first two Divinity Original Sins were Kickstarter games, and thus hit early access, and they took a lot of feedback, and they dramatically improved those games due to a lot of feedback. So this seems to be the way they just want to make these games, is like they want a giant playtesting group that can tell them what sucks ass. And they were working on Divinity 2 up until like 2 months ago? 3 months ago? They were still putting out updates?
Well, if the development style ends up resembling something like Neo, then that's for the better. And that would be worth the price of entry.
Yeah, it's actually pretty impressive. What is extra weird, though, because they are an indie company, right, is that there's clearly a lot more money and time that's gone into this already as a quote-unquote real big boy game that's not a Kickstarter game. Like, it starts with this massive, like, 6.5 minute super fancy CGI intro.
Okay.
And
that character creator looks like Black Desert level. Like, it looks really impressive.
So it's really impressive on everything but faces. They give you faces to choose. They don't let you do the slider shit.
Okay.
They don't let you choose eyebrows or whatever, but they do let you choose a million hairstyles, a million skin colors, a million makeups, that kind of thing. And it is surprising that Wizards of the Coast is just letting them do this kind of development with a D&D game, because more than anything else about this game, this is attempting to be the most accurate representation of tabletop I've ever seen in a digital format, to the point where I don't know if this will ever hit a console, because it has so many goddamn buttons and functions. It is the isometric RPG equivalent of a flight simulator. So you have your movement, you have your attack, you have your classes, you have your stats, you have your, all the usual that you would see in Pillars or Divinity. But then you have your 8 actions, which are like jump, help up, knock unconscious, stealth, throw, etc., which apply to every conceivable object in the world.
Is this because it's trying to represent like a 5th edition character sheet?
Yes.
And convert it into gameplay?
Yeah, so there's a shove button. And shove is a type of action that you can roll. It's very, very intense. It's also a game that realizes that. So I have some very strong disagreements with some folks that have complained. I'm sure you'll talk to them in the future. But there are some things that the game does that I think are genuinely cool. Usually in a game like say a Fallout, right? You want to use the doctor text option because you're a medicine man, and it goes, "Is your medicine 80?" Then you can do the medicine option, right? In D&D, it wouldn't work like that. In D&D, you'd say, "Do you want to persuade this person with your charisma, or do you want to break down this door with your strength?" Fucking roll, right?
Mm-hmm.
One always misses, 20 always succeeds, and then rolling the bonuses and all that crap. That is for everything. That is there was a weird situation early on where I wanted to get a brain out of someone's head, and I could roll a dexterity and a strength check, which I failed both, and then had to just leave because there was nothing else to do.
Everything's a
And
roll.
the most interesting thing about that is that when I wanted to roll that strength check, it goes okay, and it goes roll to beat 13, and a fucking D20 appears in the middle of the screen and says hit left click to roll. And the dice rolls it. And
Okay.
you live by the number you get.
And well, it's okay. So one, for that D&D experience, if you're a fan and you're looking for that tabletop vibe, seeing the dice roll on everything is cool and satisfying. It's a part of what makes that fun kind of come to life. However, this is where D&D kind of like the fact that I've never been I've tried being a DM once, and like I don't think I was very good at it because like my friend was basically trying to QA my world and see if he could break it instead of play the game. And I was like, "You motherfucker, I know what you're trying to do. You son of a bitch, stop it." But I don't know what always constitutes a role and what always doesn't. And there are definitely moments that I've played a campaign where the DM will be like, "Okay, yeah, so you just do that thing." They don't even do a check for it. They'll just
It's assumed to be so easy that
are just like, "Yeah, you're fine," And it's usually like it appears to be a gut call, but I don't know how that gut call applies to something like this, where the game has to have a logic to it.
Yeah. Anything important in game is hit your surfaced dice roll, and in combat it'll give you a raw percentage instead, unless the behind the scenes dice roll takes hits a 1 or a 20.
Yeah, the moments that are always like, woo, are when you do a basic bitch nothing action, and then DM goes, "Hold on a second," rolls the dice and goes, "Yeah, nothing happens." And you're like, "What the fuck was that?" That's a feeling that can't be captured in other formats,
The game seems particularly obsessed with showing you that dice rolls are happening. There was a really good talk by Josh Sawyer a million years ago when he was working on Pillars, the first one. And he was talking about how, well, Dungeons and Dragons and stuff like that have to make the math on hitting things and stuff like that as quick as possible and as simple as possible, because you're going to be physically rolling with essentially mental math, right? But if you're making a video game, you can have more complex or maybe more balanced systems, because the computer can just do all the math really fast for you, and then you just have to surface the result. There is definitely an argument to be made for that. However, there's something lost when you do that, and I didn't really realize that it was lost until I started playing BG3.
Okay.
And the big complaint is that save scumming obviously negates dice rolls, and then it becomes an argument of whether or not you can trust / incentivize the player to just play it through, right? To play through disasters. And that's really hard. You need to have a million variations of an event for playing it through a disaster to be valuable.
Well, that's
Disco Elysium does it perfectly.
I was about to bring up Disco Elysium as an example where there's more than enough strong, consistent narrative around those rules for you to fail forward into the story. And the QA on a game like this, where let's say you fail every single check possible, what does that story look like? Is it even entertaining or interesting?
The answer is yes.
You need you need to make sure that's the case, and Disco Elysium is wonderful with its fail checks.
There was a situation that I think sums it up really well, because I save scummed it about 10 times and saw what I believe to be almost every permutation of events, and led me to the decision to play it through unless I ruin the game. If you make everybody at a camp angry with you and the game's impassable, right? You run into a situation in which 3 dudes are digging up a mind flayer that is hurt in a crash, and they appear to be enthralled. The first thing that happens is there is a under the hood, invisible to the player perception check to see whether or not you can see the mind flayer between them, which you can influence by casting a priest spell on the character that encounters it, which increases their next dice roll. Then you have the ability to try and talk the people down or try and persuade the people down, which results in a charisma check. A successful charisma check has you talking to them and then they leave. A failed charisma check or a bad dialogue option ends up with a fight. In the fight, once you kill one of them, the other 2 will snap out of it unless you knock them unconscious with the knocked unconscious bonus action, which I forgot was there for most of my playtime, because that is a weird thing to include in a game like this, even though it makes perfect sense if you're trying to actually not be a piece of shit, right? They ran off after I killed their friend. I then thought, I probably should have knocked them off. You can then either talk to the mind flayer and run away from it, talk to it and try and pass an intelligence check to mind probe it. Then you have to pass a wisdom check, and if you fail that wisdom check, it eats your main character and kills them outright, gets up with almost its health completely full, and then you have a boss battle.
Seems correct.
Or you can shoot it on the floor and kill it.
Interesting. Okay.
And if you shoot it on the floor and kill it at the start of the encounter, those people become unenthralled.
You set your all of your stats prior to this, right?
Yes.
Your sheet was completely in your control?
Yeah, this was long after I had finalized my sheet.
Okay, that's a fucking good ass
right
set of
and
choices.
This was a single
nice
encounter. There is a disguise self spell in the game that when you click it, I thought would just disguise you as some amorphous whatever. It then listed every race that is humanoid in the game and goes, do you want to turn into a goblin? Do you want to turn into a half elf? Do you want to turn into a Githyanki? Whatever. Pulls up a giant bar of things you want to turn into.
Now, did Baldur's Gate prior have choices like that that were that open?
No.
But did Divinity?
No.
Okay.
There were obviously situations in those games where it's do you pass the check possible to, talk this guy out of it? But they were based on your stats, and they were usually pass-fail.
Okay.
Right?
So this is new shit.
I have played through the introduction, and I feel like I may be a third of the way through the first act. I can't wait to play through it again with a different character. In addition, because the game supports 4-person multiplayer with each person as their own person, independent of one another, there's the permutation of events. when you talk to somebody and you enter into like a Mass Effect style, like, face zoom in cutscene angle dialogue,
Yeah.
there's a change character button in the bottom left that brings you out of the conversation into one of your other controllable characters who can then wander around the environment and it like set up for an ambush or rob people as they're talking or what. It's
And you continue to hear the conversation?
No, it freezes time until you talk to somebody. Until you go back to the person who's handling the conversation. On top of that, one of the things that was always awkward in these old games was stuff like stealth, because it was real time. Even paused, it was still real time, right? So you'd have vision cones and stuff like that. In this game, if you want, you can activate turn-based at any time, which then causes rounds to progress in 6-second increments, in which you can plan every 6 seconds of go here, hide, go here, hide, go here, make a distraction, you go here, talk, etc., to actually be able to do stealthy things and tricky things, like
that sounds
pick up this dead imp. Yes. And pick up this imp corpse and toss it so that this guy can go over there and all this shit. There's the game feels like it's about to fly apart, but you play it for a couple hours and you're like, oh, no wonder it feels like it's just fucking breaking apart at the seams. There are millions of interactions, it feels like, happening every single second that, like, the game seems at least to be smart enough to want to show you that those reactions are happening, even if they fail.
So early access because the ambitions are fucking stratospheric.
Gigantic.
Yeah. Okay.
So probably the best example of the game telling me that something's happening, even if it means nothing to me, so that I feel like, oh, cool game, or I think about it, is that I walk into a dark ass crypt and I walk forward 1 foot, and every person in my party starts rolling a perception check. An eyeball appears above their heads, and a little timer starts going, and the perception check finishes, and all 4 fail. And I go, what the fuck is in this room that every single member of my party just failed to see? And upon scrounging the room for long enough, eventually one of them passed a check that let me see that there were grates in the floor that meant that the chest in the middle of the room was trapped.
Okay, but that's
so that I could.
That is the in-game engine version of what I just described, where you walk into a room, DM goes, "Hold on a second, yeah, you guys are fine for now." And you're like, oh, that's absolutely perfect.
And this also applies to what I'm going to call non-combat or social statistics. So one of the, proficiencies you can get is in religion or metaphysics or whatever, right?
Yeah.
I go up to some alien contraption that the Mind Flayers use. I look at it. I can't read it. It rolls a metaphysics check. I fail it. I still can't read it. In an area I went by a mostly smashed a religious statue in which only the cleric passed the religious test, at which point she uttered, "Oh, that's so-and-so. I didn't know many people worshipped him. This must be one of his only sanctuaries," or something like that. So the game is just constantly just reaching out against the environment and touching it and rolling against your party stats.
Just on a curiosity level,
it's so impressive.
On a curiosity level, if you can save scum, obviously you play in a way that doesn't ruin your experience, but in times where I'd want to be like, how would this have gone? I like the ability to be able to jump back and do that if I'm not necessarily going to do an entirely different run, So that's pretty good.
Well, I think the main way that they're going to fight save scumming is not by seeding outcomes, because that would be terrible. That would be the worst, right? Like the reload an XCOM save and it's always the same because the shot was actually determined before your turn started. It would be like, so I'm thinking about it. if I were to have save scummed every choice that I would have failed, I would have not even left the tutorial. Like, it is constantly doing that shit to the point of just like the progress would be slow.
But also,
Now,
sometimes when you fail rolls, you're failing a roll that like you just don't even have a possibility of hitting anyway. You can't assume that you
yeah.
always would have nailed it. You know, you have to
Yeah.
let go of those failures.
I mean, there was one that I attempted that like the past state was like 17, and it's like I'm not gonna get that.
Yeah.
Like, there's no fucking way. So all that, the game plays like Divinity, like, you know, combat wise, it's good. But the game is currently flying to pieces. There's been times where I talk to people and their own clone starts A-posing and floating behind them.
Oh yeah.
Shit just breaks. Certain interactions seem bugged. Performance varies wildly, etc. And it's only the first act of the game. So it is a profoundly unfinished product right now. But it's really cool, and boy, is it going to be really cool. The game does support multiplayer right now, and multiplayer is fucked, I imagine, because it's so much more complex because all of these things are interacting with each other in a network environment.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's really, really cool. They say that it will be out in 1 year. I don't know, man.
Well,
I really don't know.
Considering the size of this company and what they made before, and then also saying that this is early access and these are the ambitions, clearly the price they're putting on this is not only final ticket price, but they need money.
Yeah.
They fucking need some cash. So that sounds like a fair proposition. Get in early, see what's going on. If the thing is good, it's the price you're going to pay at the end anyway. And if you like what you got, like, that sounds more than fair.
I also have something of note.
Given the ambition.
Of big note to myself, and possible big note to yourself, is that this has Twitch integration, which I've been using.
Mm-hmm.
And it has the best Twitch integration of any game I've seen so far. It's pretty simple. When you load up the Twitch integration little docket on the game, people watching your stream can go through every one of your character's sheets. What do they have equipped? What do they have? What are their stats? What are their levels? What are their spells? What are their equipped items? Everything. Right? In addition, when you enable Twitch integration and you talk to anyone about anything, a little bar graph icon appears above the dialogue options. And when you push on it, you see the votes of the chat talking about what they want you to pick. It doesn't pick for you.
Yes, it's just what
but
they
it
want to
does
see.
tell you 82% of your chat would like to see this dialogue option.
Okay. The prior point you mentioned, they can go through your sheet, as in they can just see what your character sheet is on their own at any time.
Yep, it's just a little button off to the side of the screen.
They have no control over anything. Yeah, okay, all
right. So it leads to the situations where you're like, you would usually go, I don't know, chat, should I go left or right?
Mm-hmm.
And instead of just looking at chat and typing 1 or 2, just click the little button and actually see what people actually want you to do.
But you have to click a button to make it appear.
Yeah.
It's not always there.
No, they'll probably put a feature that will put it always there.
Okay.
But I think it's always there so that you can choose whether or not chat has any implicit control.
Yeah, it needs to not always be there, because then you're obviously peer pressured into every decision in the video game, which is not.
I've been playing mostly peer pressure, and it led me to an interesting conclusion that Larian also ran into themselves, which was chat actually wanted to pick the option that I would most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like 90% of the time, chat picks whatever option is give me more information.
Mm-hmm.
And then whatever is, the nice slash chill option.
Yeah, the
Larian,
reasonable main character.
yeah, Larian put out a statement where they dove into the metadata of people's character creators. Did you see that?
No.
So they dove into the character creator data, and they're like, all right, we made the character that our community has communally made, the one that is made out of all the most commonly chosen options. And congratulations, players. You made player one Nathan Drake. Human.
You boring fucks.
There are like 11 races in the game, including Githyanki, which are like
fucking
space people. There are demon people with tails and big horns and fire eyes. There's a bunch of different elves and dwarves and all sorts of shit. And you got fucking human ass Nathan Drake looking guy.
Paul marketing just got hard.
And they're like, God damn it.
Paul is fucking chubbing up. He's chubbing up. The data is the data is the data.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, because I mean, people don't like to make monster races. I like to make monster races. I almost always pick a monster race. But look at World of Warcraft. What are the two most popular races? Humans and the elves that look like anime characters.
Well, when I think of people I know that are playing games and making these decisions, right? Like, there's the way you play, there's the way I play, there's all these things. But then I'm also like looking at like Steph, who's playing games now, and like I'm sort of seeing some of her decision making, and it's interesting to see how like if you have to look at a choice of 4 or 5 options, just put the words I don't know, I guess this one before the actual pick, and I think that'll spell out what they ended up seeing as their high demographic choices, Like, yeah, I guess that. Sure. Protagonist, he'll do the thing. He's got a sword and board. He's probably charming.
I'm not even in a particular place to complain, because even though I made a tiefling, which is like a quarter demon person with big horns, what I made was a balding ginger tiefling that would be me if I was a demon boy.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
yeah. But no, a lot of, but then you get the discussion of like, what do you want to role play, or do you play these games to be hot / to make a waifu? Everyone's got their different goals.
About that, Woolie, the character creator in BG3 has a waifu character creator in it. I don't know what it actually affects, but after you create your character, it then goes what attracts you, and it demands you make a second character.
That is really strong. You haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, it's the phrasing.
You haven't seen its effect yet.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but it just says what attracts you, and it loads in, and you can make anything.
Strong.
You can make a dwarf bro with the pecs.
Very.
You can make a
very
elf
strong
lady. It's the waifu / husbando creator.
Is there? That's, you literally fixed part of what I was in the middle of saying, which is a character creator represents different things to different people. For some people, it's make what you want. For others, it's make what you want to be. You know, and then for others, it's make yourself as is. So that divides a clean line between at least one of those categories. Brilliant.
So
fucking brilliant.
So they're gonna the game's only got half the classes, and it doesn't have all the races. It's probably the one of the races that I hope would be in is called Warforged, but they're robots, so the story doesn't make any sense for them, because the whole plot is that mind flayers put a brain parasite in your head, and that wouldn't work very well for robots.
So I'm on that point because I'm like, here's why I love that, right? Not just for the obvious reasons of, yo, hey, what do you like and what gets you going, but I love that data in the hands of a dev that's willing to fucking use it against you.
All right.
I want, so if you are filling out, hey, what are you into? And let's say you're like, oh, I don't know. I like me a good little twink and, you know, I want some cute hair and lithe kind of.
I've been playing some Genshin Impact lately, so bring on the cute boys.
Bring on the cute boys, right? I want that kind of little attitude. And you go and you put that in as you're like, yeah, give me more of that. Oh, game goes.
Character creator, honey. Don't worry about it.
Game goes, all right, you want some of that? Cool. Keep it in mind. And then, like, 30 hours later, you go to, like, Fish People Kingdom, and the half fish people are a bunch of twinks with gills. And you're like, oh, look, it's your fish people. Are you interested?
What you wanted.
Did you not want your fish twinks? I got them right here. You know? And just start fucking just doing little things like that. Just playing with it. Oh, this kind of haircut? Yeah, let's throw that out. You know, just absolutely.
Let's have every piece of shit character in the game have that haircut.
Use it against you. I love that idea. Dastardly.
Yeah, game's cool, man. One last thing that I want to mention that's I think is interesting is that not all the party members are available in the current version. But all the complete piece of shit party members are available because apparently Larian discovered that fewer people use the overtly evil characters. So they want data on that. So the overtly evil, horrible characters are going to fill up most of your party in the current version of the game. And the result of that is that, like, everyone either hates your guts or you're playing a scumbag party. Like, there are people that you run into and you discover them and they go, oh, hey, man, what's up? And they go, kill everyone in here. Okay. Or the rogue that joins your party, you meet him when he tries to slit your throat and rob you.
Doesn't seem like that'll work well with the Nathan Drake agreeable man.
It does not. But yeah, game's cool. If I was not streaming it and having the fun of playing it with a huge audience and being excited for it to fly apart, I would definitely not be playing this at all. Because like my criteria for stopping the Baldur's Gate 3 on stream is beat the content that's there, which is maybe 15% of the game. The game becomes unplayably broken, or Larian puts out a patch that just deletes everyone's save files, which is part of the agreement, is that, hey guys, from day to day, all of your save files might just disappear because, you know, we might have to change something that wrecks them.
And these are fat fucking saves by the end of your file.
I can imagine, yes.
Right, so, yeah. Okay.
Also, the game's UI is terrible and desperately needs another, like, 3 passes. Organizing a cleric's entire school of spells on a hotbar took me no shit 15 minutes. Like,
yeah, so I guess so the emphasis really here is the game is not out. If you
can fuck with it.
If you want to go see what's happening right now with it, you can pay to get in and see what's happening with it. But the game is not actually out. Yeah. Losing your save is a huge caveat to enter into.
It is to be guaranteed that if you play this early access version, they will likely wipe saves at the very least every time they add new content to it.
What Dead Cells did was it kept your save in the slot, and basically if you loaded that save up, you were getting the unupdated patched version of the game, essentially, for a while. But then there was a wipe, you know, when it just became like completely impractical to keep it. Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's not out. You are checking out what's going on. Makes sense.
Yeah,
That sounds
totally.
incredible. That sounds really good.
It's so impressive. And then because they did an interview where they were asked like, "Hey, is this coming to consoles?" They're like, "No, no way.
You can't just.
There's no way we could do this on consoles."
Mousing and keyboarding.
And I'm like, "Oh, that's ridiculous." And then you see like the keybinds thing. The keybinds almost every button on the fucking keyboard does something. Like there are 4 different modifiers for the movement. Like if you hold shift, that's the jump movement. If you hold control, that's the damage movement. And it is coming to Stadia. I know. Thanks for paying for some of this game, Stadia.
Well, if you can set the game to be turn-based, I suppose that remains fine, because you can just look at your keyboard and figure out what you need to do without the panic of, oh no, Shift F question mark. All right. Well,
game's crazy.
Cool. And you said that it actually is Baldur's Gate because it happens to be taking place in the same location, but it's not in fact actually directly linked.
It is some time after the others, and in the opening cutscene it has a Nautiloid mind flayer ship attacking a city that you then later find out, oh, that city was Baldur's Gate. And that's why almost every person that you run into in the beginning of the game that is from the crashed ship is actually from Baldur's Gate. And the ostensible goal of the game is, let's get back home. Let's get back to Baldur's Gate and also get these mind parasites out of our head.
I have an important question. Going into this new generation, how would you feel if Sony and Microsoft, and then eventually Nintendo down the line, got to a point where they said, hey, look, we're porting some games, or we're getting some game support for games that are on PC. Plug in a fucking keyboard and mouse, and you can play it on our console.
I think that would be completely fine.
Now,
Sony has already jumped on that bandwagon, kind of.
It supports
Fortnite
it for
and 14
optional things.
Yeah.
Now, if you went down that road, you are now putting the wall up for people that are like, I just bought it, I have a controller, and I don't want to do anything else. Right? It's a little bit of that arcade stick problem.
Yeah.
Originally, when arcade sticks were, becoming more and more popular. It's hard to get people to budge on that.
I'm torn. If it's the decision whether or not like a game like this comes to those consoles at all, bring that game to the consoles and just put the keyboard in, right? That being said, I really, really, really like Divinity's controller implementation. And I hope to fuck that Baldur's Gate 3, even if it doesn't get console support, does get controller support. Like, moving things in the inventory right now with a mouse is terrible. It's fucking shit. So I really hope that they do put controller support, and then they put it on next gen consoles, because then of course you have all the power in the world to run all these stat checks in the background, yada yada.
I mean, like,
but if it's the difference between it coming out or not, then yeah, by all means, just whatever.
It coming out or not ends up being the whole argument, though, right? Because it's like, throw it out there, and for those who want to play it that way, or those who are willing to do it, then you do it, and that is a like open system that lets people do what they want. However, make no mistake, you now enter into a simultaneous world of super upset people that don't have a mouse and keyboard to plug in, that will be very, very, very angry that they cannot play without those things. And they would constantly it would become a controversy online, for people that don't own a mouse and keyboard to plug in, that are like, fuck you, I can't play your game, or I bought your game but I can't play it. What? So that enters into a strange dynamic where you have to make sure that people are like aware of and okay with not being able to play everything that the console supports with what came in the box.
I mean, that already exists with peripheral style games,
Hmm.
right? So I don't see a problem, honestly.
I think in the end it would be fantastic because it would just allow more people to play more games. It would just
Yeah.
open up a situation where tons of incredible things that otherwise couldn't be touched on a console now could.
Obviously, this does lead to a possible problem in which games that would have gotten controller support will no longer because they can go, oh, just use a fucking mouse and keyboard.
Sure, and it can even allow the it can give fucking Sony an excuse to sell you a $40 keyboard and mouse combo.
Oh, they will. In fact, I think they might already.
It's white. It has white on the fucking trims. But yeah, that feels like a win in the not that last example, but if they started getting games to just like port games that are like you need a mouse and keyboard to play this, but that you pop it in, it works, and you don't necessarily have to suffer if let's say you don't have a great computer or something that can handle some of the stuff going on in the PC only world. Brings it all together. I think it would be really cool if things went that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that would be valuable. I guess the last thing I want to say is like this game gives me a feeling I have not felt playing an RPG of this type since I want to say Dragon Age 1 / Mass Effect 2 / Baldur's Gate 2. Like, it's got that certain something that some games have and other games don't, that I can't quite describe, where you start playing it, you just start like nodding your head and you're like, yeah, this is a good one. This is going to be a good one.
And you're in the middle of saying how much we're missing out on by not knowing 1 and 2.
Nothing.
Okay.
It's 100 years later, and it's in the same universe.
Cool. All right.
It's apparently a sequel to an adventure model for 5th edition, called Descent into Avernus. So, in fact, do you want to know what the prequel to this story is
A
go
campaign?
Check out that adventure model.
An actual campaign. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Where can I buy Descent into Avernus at D&D nerd stores and Amazon near you?
That's pretty funny. Okay. Couldn't be less connected.
Module, not adventure. My bad. My B. I don't know what these nerd things are called. Nerds.